You are experiencing the Knuckleheads of Liberty podcast.
Welcome to the Knuckleheads of Liberty, where we are bringing you the people and the organizations fighting for liberty around the country and in your region. And we'll hope that will inspire you to do the same. If you'd like us to do a show focused on your region, just send comments to our facebook.com Knuckleheads of Liberty, or send an email to knuckleheads@knuckleheadsofliberty.com. And so today we're going to be talking, we're actually going to be kind of shifting over to the state of Maine and talking to Allen Esposito. He is a city councilman or counselor for District 4 in the city of Hampden. But before we get into that, let me introduce you to the rest of our panel. In our lower left-hand corner, we have Leon, the word Brathwaite, last word in Liberty. He is a retired engineer in the state of California. And in our lower right-hand corner today, we have Allen Esposito. And my name is Jason McPhee, and I'll be your host. So let's jump into the show. And as we do, James, maybe our invisible hand, James, can you bring up the visual? So here is the Hampden City Council page. And I wanted to give you all a quick snapshot of what's going on in Maine as far as sort of the state of liberty there, so we kind of all know where we're at and everything. So we have Maine up here, and they're actually listed back in the last time Cato updated their freedom map as 34 out of 50. So doing a heck of a lot better than California, but not doing well overall. And you can kind of see this is their overall chart on that. And this is sort of what they disaggregated a little bit. Apparently they're doing pretty well in personal liberties, but some of the other stuff leaves a little bit to be desired. As far as the political split, on the senatorial side, they have sort of a middle-of-the-road Republican and an independent, and the rest of the stuff seems to be mostly shifting toward Democrats. They got a few representatives that are Democrats, and then at the state government level, it's mostly Democrats, and also in the legislature as well, it's skewed toward Democrats as well. So that kind of gives you a little bit of an eyeball of what's going on there. So, Allen, tell us, how did you decide to, get involved in politics there? And, I guess what got you interested? Why did you decide to join the fight for liberty?
So I can say that I'm proudly one of Ron Paul's converts. So I voted for Dr. Ron Paul in 2012, voted for Gary Johnson 2016. Proudly got to speak and be the master of ceremonies for Dr. Jorgensen when she came to Maine for 2020. That's when at the time I was the chairman of the Penobscot County Libertarian Party. And personal liberty is something that I hold near and dear to my heart. I think personal liberty and the non-aggression principle go hand in hand, and one cannot exist without the other. So I live to preach the gospel.
Okay, well, that's cool. And one of the things we always like to ask our guests too is, it's not the norm for people to believe these types of ideas about liberty. I mean, a lot of people, they go through the government schools and they think government's the solution to all problems. So it's a little bit, kind of an odd thing for somebody to come around to these ideas of Ron Paul and others. What rang your liberty bell? How did you sort of wake up to these ideas?
I was on active duty in the United States Army at the time, and I had already been deployed to Iraq for 12 and a half months. And when I was a young man, I bought into the ideas of, we've got to keep the fight over there so it doesn't come back over here. And I had felt that at first, but then I kind of looked back at my service with a little bit of regret and remorse. And, I'm always thankful for the people that I served with and everything else, but that's when I knew I was wrong. And how I felt was wrong. And I didn't want to feel bad. So I wanted to attach some sort of meaning and purpose to the service I had given. Because I did other things on top of just deploy to Iraq, which did service the public. But that was the one that stuck out the most. And that was, I just wanted to find that meaning and find that purpose. And liberty really drove that home.
So do you think the projection of the United States military might is fundamentally wrong or morally wrong?
Wrong, fundamentally or morally wrong, no. However, fundamentally twisted, yes. I think I've always been a fan of speak softly but carry a big stick. So, the fact that we're in so many different countries, deployed to so many different areas that we don't, frankly, should be involved with. If it were me, I'm your typical libertarian of wanting to abolish the Department of Homeland Security, bring 90% of those deployed forces home to protect the homeland and then slash billions of dollars out of the budget instead of having billions of dollars in additional operating costs to operate in countries that we have no business being in.
Well, hold on just a second, Leon. I just wanted to jump in on this topic that you're on. And we just brought this up the last show. So I just wanted to say, James, could you bring up the visual here? So this kind of gets into what you're talking about Twisted. 750 bases in 80 countries, 173,000 troops in 159 countries. Yeah, I guess, is that what you're talking about being Twisted?
That is exactly what I'm talking about. There are some of those countries. And, the United States is famous on falling on its face for, we're operating in places that we have no business being in. There was a perfect example of that I think it was 2012, when Fitbit really came into their own. They used to have a heat map on their website that showed where users were using their product on their website. And the country of Oman lit up like a Christmas tree. We didn't have anything formally in place with Oman. And so that led to questions and everything else. And then it came out we were operating out of Oman. And it was because service members were using Fitbits. And that kind of told on the United States. So just
this is kind of one of the points, I guess. I'm sorry, Leon, I'll let you jump, and I promise right after this. But you said Oman. I don't even know where Oman is on the map, and the fact that you're saying it lights up like a Christmas tree with our footprint on it. I feel like this is what's happening with everybody.
It's in the Middle East, okay. Jason, somewhere in the Middle East.
The Arabian Peninsula.
The Arabian Peninsula. That's right. Okay. So, Alan, I think you would agree that there's evil in the world, and some of this evil do project some mighty armies, I have to say. So, what do you think that we should do about that, or should we be doing anything about the evil in the world?
Well, I'm going to follow the non-aggression principle for decision making. I follow the NAP in my everyday life. I want to make sure that what I'm doing doesn't or limit inflicting any damage on anybody else. I'm not out to violate anybody's life, liberty, or property. And I want the most morally out of my life. So, are you referring or inferring about something like Russia and Ukraine? Is that what I'm to understand?
Something like that, yes.
Okay, so Russia and Ukraine, it's easy to feel apathy for the Ukrainian people because they're the victims in all of it. They're the victims of their own government. They're the victims of the businesses that operate in Ukraine and their shady dealings and what have you. And they're victims of the Russian incursion. Okay, yes. Russia invaded a sovereign nation that had no business being inside of. Now, to that end, Ukraine is not a NATO partner. They haven't been a NATO partner. Really, the U.S. is partially responsible in the fact once the Soviet Union fell, didn't we encourage Ukrainians to give up all of their nuclear weapons?
We did, yes. During the Clinton administration, yes.
And the U.S. operating policy is assured mutual destruction. And had Ukraine been able to have that backbone, I'm willing to bet pennies to pesos that Russia probably wouldn't have invaded Ukraine had they still had nukes in Ukraine. So it's poor policy making by the United States and encourage poor policy making. But we have a hand in it, but not enough to go and cost U.S. lives and not breaking the bank to the extent that we are and putting the burden on the American people.
Well, it's funny. Sorry, I was just going to say, it seems like the only good news this is for the military-industrial complex. they're the only ones.
I mean, if you're Raytheon, Halliburton, any of these large defense contractors, absolutely. I'm probably going to get whacked, but whatever. Yes. I'm just a town councilor in the middle of nowhere. Nobody cares.
not too small for Hillary's Christmas card list.
I'm only like 4 hours from Martha's Vineyard, so I better be careful.
So Alan, where would you draw the line? I think we could all agree that if we invaded, then we have to fight. There's no doubt about that. But where do you draw the line in terms of us beyond our borders? Or is there a line?
So the fact that we have already established relationships with things like NATO, those aren't things that are going to go away easily. Those are things that we're obligated to participate in. And, whatever governing body, I'm not sure which one it is, if it's Congress or what. I believe it's Congress that ratifies treaties and alliances and whatnot. But so
yes.
If Congress ever decided to dissolve their membership with NATO, so be it. But until then, we're a NATO member and we have to support every inch of NATO, which is Article 5 deems. So, we hold up to our obligations. But to that end, our NATO partners need to hold up to their obligations as well, whether that be financially, militarily, et cetera.
Okay.
Well, one of the things I wanted to ask you about, and it's more, I guess, for people who are listening and they want to figure out, what they can do in their community. And that's, since you've been elected, what have you been able to do to kind of promote liberty or to get the word out? I guess, what kind of a difference do you think you're making in your community?
There are days where I feel like I can see I'm making measurable success, and then there are days that are, why the hell do I bother? So it's like, imagine like a scatter chart, and you're just plotting different things. Like, oh, one day you're up here, and then the next day you're way down here. So it's all over the place. You can see where the needle is, like things like personal property rights. I am avidly hungry on property rights. I do not want government intervention. Property taxes are high enough as it is in this state. So I don't want an increase to the mill rate if I can help it. I don't want to strain the people. I want Hampden to be a business friendly place. Like we're going to be bonding out a sewer project for multiple millions of dollars to be able to build up an area that there are many medium and large companies that are hungry for us to develop because they want to come to Hampden. Compared to everybody else, we have a lower mill rate. We have fairly lower taxes. So they want to come here, but so we're going to bond that out. That's something that I feel like I've been contributing towards because I'm for it. I want business to come here because obviously businesses pay more in taxes locally than individuals do. So it's going to lower the tax rate on citizens. I'm okay. I can live with that at the end of the day. But there are numerous other things that are things like you might have heard of this already, and you're going to hear more about it. It's called form-based code. Have you heard of this form-based code?
No.
I would really urge you guys to look up form-based code and its roots, because it's all, if you really want to put your tinfoil hat on, it's all derived around Agenda 21. But that's the part that nobody says out loud. So everything is standardized. There's no room for flexibility. This is it.
And by the way, just for our listeners, Agenda 21 is this sort of like the UN's you will own nothing and be happy. Is that what we're talking about?
Yep.
Okay.
The socialist utopia. The socialist utopia. Yes.
Okay.
So, and some of it, when we had it presented to us by our town planner, there were some nice parts and some appealing parts to it. But then there was the part that didn't get said out loud. And I don't think that was a diversion on his part. I was just thinking that that's going to be less appealing to people. So things like form-based code is coming. If it's not here already, it's coming to a town near you. So please be wary of it. On top of that, a lot of left-wing state governments are pushing towards form-based code as well, because then it gives the state ample flexibility if they need to adjust or tweak laws. So that way it can tuck right. It's a nasty little bed buddy. So form-based code.
What did you call it? What is the name of this thing? It's on foreign-based code is what he said?
FORM. Form-based code.
Form-based code. Okay.
Yeah.
Let me ask you something.
Yep.
Okay, let me ask you something. So I think it's as well established politics is the art of compromise. So how much of your principles do you have to compromise to try to get anything done as a councilman or as a council, I guess?
Fantastic question. So this one is, I've bitten the bullet. I'll say there are times where I've bitten the bullet where it's not what I believe, but the people in town, they want something or they're requesting something. If If they're coming to me, I'm going to do it. I represent people in a district. What they say matters more than what I think and feel. So I really try to put them first. And so there are times where I have just bitten the bullet and I'm like, you know what? It's not about me. It's about them. This is what they want. This is what's going to happen.
Okay.
You know, one thing I wanted to jump back on something you said earlier as well, and I just wanted to clarify it. And I'm sure you know what you meant is sort of the libertarian way of saying it, but sometimes people, especially if they're conservative, they hear something different, I guess, or maybe if they're on the left. And you said we want to be business friendly, and when you say we want to be business friendly, I assume you mean just sort of get government out of the way, but not like crony capitalism, right?
Yes, absolutely.
Exactly.
No. So I don't believe in the term crony capitalism. Okay. There's a difference between capitalism and corporatism. I don't believe in corporatism. Get government and private industry out of bed with each other. That's corporatism. Absolutely disgusted and against it. So this is just trying to make it on top of like this sewer project, for example. There's also actual homes and developments and stuff up this way too. So instead of them having to rely on maybe their wells and whatnot, which fortunately we've had a lot of rain this year, but other years we haven't. So now they're going to get actual pipe and plumbing run to their house so they can tie into it and be part of like our sewer, for example. So it's not just businesses that are going to benefit from the areas where they want to build up. It's also going to be constituents.
Mm-hmm. Okay. Well, I guess one of the questions I wanted to ask you as well, and this is something confronting, I guess, everybody who wants to make a difference in their community. But what were the challenges in running for office for you? Was it, was there a lot of expense? Did you get help from the Libertarian Party?
So you're going to hate this story. Are you ready?
Okay.
I ran unopposed. So
the best way to run.
I'm up for re-election this November, and I know that somebody's already taken out paperwork and whatnot, and I'm up for re-election this year. So I have my paperwork. I'm not sure if I'm going to turn it in yet or not. I haven't come to that decision. I have some other things I have to keep the agency out of this, but I also work for the federal government. So I have to keep them apart because of the Hatch Act and everything. So I have a lot of responsibilities also working for the federal government that I have to attend to. But I had about $700, $800 set aside. I had signs purchased. I was prepared to do an every door direct mailing around my district, which I encourage everybody. Every door direct mailing is a fantastic tool. But I had about $800, and I wasn't going to ask for help because I make a decent living and I didn't need help fronting it or whatnot. So I wasn't going to ask the Libertarian Party for help. I had their blessing because obviously they wanted me to be part of this governing body. But I was just prepared to go at it myself.
Were they a good source of advice and information, at least guidance, even if not resources? I mean, was that something that helped you out?
No, but communication, they were helpful. So if I needed something put out to the Penobscot County Libertarian Party page, for example, has a little over 4,000 followers. And which, when you look at the analytics of the page, like 90+% of them are local to Penobscot County. So it helps to be able to reach local people in the masses and just to have them be able to put something out. Hey, if you're looking for another option, check out Allen Esposito for Hampden Maine Town Council, things like that.
So how receptive do you find your constituents and people maybe in other parts of Maine? How receptive are they to your message of liberty and libertarian principles?
Well, let me ask you, Leon, have you ever been to Maine?
No.
Okay, so Maine is two very different states. Obviously, we split our electoral college vote to either 4-0 or 3-1, but Maine is two different states. Everything south of the capital, Augusta, swings very far left. Everything north of Augusta, with the exception of Bangor, swings very far right. So it's a tale of two Maines. So it really depends on, if I talk to somebody in rural northern Maine, you would think that I was some extremist who wants to legalize cannabis for everybody and allow prostitution. Or if you go down to southern Maine, like the Portland area, and I have "Don't Tread on Me" flag sticker on my pickup truck, you'd think that I'm racist and out to lynch people. Like there's no in between. There's no reason. The state is very divided, and I don't know how the poison comes out of the well, if that makes sense.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah. It feels very much like the country in general.
Yeah. So I'm either just a Democrat that loves guns or a Republican that likes weed. It doesn't matter. And I don't use marijuana or anything, but that's what I get pegged for being.
Yeah. Well, what are some of the biggest? Oh, sorry. Go ahead, Leon.
So in terms of your growth in libertarian philosophy, or in some of your readings and background, did you run across some of the more popular readers, libertarian type readers, who have kind of guided and developed some of your thoughts about libertarianism?
Yeah. So if you're talking libertarian author or literature, Ayn Rand, obviously the mother of modern day libertarianism, that's where I'm going to start. So her favorite book of mine is The New Intellectual. And that book, have you read it?
No, I've read an excerpt of it, but I've never read the book itself.
So that book, it just comes out swinging. I love that book. So it talks about essentially back at the time of Genghis Khan, how you had Genghis Khan, who was the bloodthirsty strength ruler, and then you had the witch doctor. He helped control the minds of the people and help keep them in line. He gave them the religious part, while Genghis Khan gave them the strength and protection part. Both of the two hated each other, but they both needed each other to enable to hold control. And that's the perfect example of the two-party system. So the book just comes out swinging like that. I absolutely love it. So if you haven't read it, The New Intellectual by Ayn Rand. But I would also say for like helping to drive and educate people on libertarianism and the liberty movement, I was a plaintiff in the lawsuit here in the state of Maine for the last 5-6 years. We sued to get the Libertarian Party to be a recognized party in the state of Maine, and we won finally. So that just happened earlier this year. But so I was a plaintiff in that lawsuit. I gave testimony as to, Republicans love free speech until they have to compete against it in a debate, or same with Democrats, no different. So we get accused for stealing votes when just both parties' ideas are just god awful. So that's one of my biggest contributions to liberty in the state of Maine, was helping to make sure that came to fruition.
So what in Maine is right now? There's a small wave of school voucher programs that are developing in various states throughout the country. The most prominent of it is in Arizona. Is anything like that happening in Maine right now?
The voices are out there, and that's one that I've heard a lot of people on the right that are pushing for so far, legislators, and I'm not willing to say who, but I even know a couple people in the Maine state legislature that are actual elected Democrats who are for school choice as well. So I think that COVID has really kind of shook people on their beliefs, both on the left and the right, when it comes to public education. And I think in the next 5 to 10 years, you'll really start to see a paradigm shift in public education. I'm hoping, at least.
I think so. So I was just going to ask, based upon your last comment, I kind of know where you're at on school choice. But philosophically, do you have any sort of problems with the government funding it, but not actually managing the schools?
I had a constituent come before me because he was upset about some certain literature that was found in the school library, and he asked me what I was going to do about it. And I said, I wish I could defund the Department of Education, but I just can't. I don't have the power, because that would be the absolute first thing I would do is defund the Department of Education. Absolutely.
Yeah. Hey, the Department of Indoctrination.
Yeah, more like that.
What's the difference between education and a doctor? A doctor, when they go to cut out the cancer, they go to the source of the cancer, right?
Yes.
There you go. Yeah, I think this is kind of the source of our country's cancer.
Yes.
But I did want to steer the conversation back, at least for our audience on public access, just to a few more things about the mechanics of what you do there in Maine. And so I wanted to find out, are there any challenges that you face just being a legislator there, or not a legislator, but a councilman there in Hampden?
Yeah, but it's a labor of love. I absolutely enjoy doing it. I love the people. Whether I agree with them or they agree with me, they're all worth it. They're worth my time. They're worth my effort. I enjoy doing it. So there are challenges. This is a council that it's nonpartisan, so you don't run on a party platform, but everybody has their political biases, right? So I tend to split things more than I should, just because I am the way I am, and I know that can upset some of my compatriots on the council, and I love all of them dearly. So we've had some challenges, and then recently, a couple months ago, unfortunately, our mayor passed away. He had complications of a surgery, and he didn't make it. So his seat is vacant right now, and we have a mayor in place and a deputy mayor. But so that kind of creates more of a divide in the council, and it's been a bit of a sore spot. So I feel as though that before, when it was 3 on one side, 3 on the other, and myself, that's just my assumption. I'm not saying this person is or is not affiliated with this party, but it's just the way we vote, the way we discuss argumentatively, I can deductive reasoning kind of get an idea of who's where. I feel as though that some of that discussion is missing when it's more lean one side. So I don't think anybody really enjoys one party politics unless you're the one party who it is. So the debate, the spirited debate, that's the driving body of any dais of any legislature.
Well, and then one other thing I wanted to ask you too before we get to the end of our time with public access, and that's it. Do you have any lesson or anything you've learned from your experience that you think is an important message that you'd want to share with anybody out there who's thinking of running for office?
Absolutely. You're going to encounter things that you never dreamed of. If you run for public office, I don't care if you're running for dog catcher, your town or city council, whatever you're running for, it's worth it. You're going to encounter challenges that you never could have dreamed of, and you're going to meet people that you might not normally associate with, and you get the opportunity to learn how to bridge the gap and the divide and do it in a setting which is professional and proficient.
Awesome. Well, at this point, I just wanted to let our audience know on public access that our time is up with you guys. So we're going to be breaking away. But you can still follow. We're still going to be talking with Allen about some other things going on in Maine and get his opinion on some of those. So there's definitely more to hear. And if you want to check that out, go follow the conversation on either Facebook, YouTube, Spotify, or Rumble, and look for Knuckleheads of Liberty, and you'll be able to find this conversation or other conversations we've had with other people fighting for liberty. And by the way, leave comments. We enjoy that, and so we'd love to hear from you. So at this point, I think we're going to cut away, but stay tuned for the next one.
Yes, indeed.
Okay, so I think that's the end of our public access. So let's, were there any other thoughts you wanted to share before we start jumping into the news items as well, about some of your work on the city council, just in case we missed anything?
No, I don't think so.
Okay. Well, let's start jumping into some of these news topics. And so in Maine, these are some news items that might be interesting to liberty-minded folks, but obviously, there's only a few areas in the country where prostitution is legal. And so now Maine has sort of, I guess, kind of giving a wink and a nod to it by sort of decriminalizing some aspects of it. And so, James, maybe we could get the visual up here on this. So it looks like the legislature has, and it's been signed by the governor, I guess, but they've just approved of some laws that are going to at least not crack down on the sex workers. So it sounds like they're still coming after the Johns, but at least one aspect of it, and I don't know, is we're not getting the whole thing here, but a bird in the hand is better than a bird in the bush. 2 birds in the bush. I don't know. But
I'm a minarchist libertarian. So every party has, their different factions within the party, and I identify as a minarchist. I want as little government intrusion as possible. So if there's something I know I can't completely abolish, what can I do to try to make it easier on people? And I think that's kind of this seems like the mentality for this sort of thing. So before we started, this was the first I had heard of it, and because I know the parties had some other things bigger fish that they've been looking at to fry. But honestly, I don't. Our Libertarian Party, we used to have an OnlyFans page, and that's how they would help raise money for the Penobscot County Libertarian Party. They had people. They had their own OnlyFans. They were the first political party with an OnlyFans page. So
you would think that we'd be getting more attention.
You would think so.
Did they just choose, like, you know?
Oh, look, the Libertarians are naked again. That's what it is.
Yeah.
Libertarians are naked.
Yeah, did they pick that guy from the convention when we had Gary Johnson running? Stripped everything off.
Yeah, we just got Bill Weld in the back burner. We're just ready to go. But no,
so Alan.
But sex work is work. I never understood that argument. It's been around. Sex work has been around for centuries.
Since the beginning of time, it's the oldest profession.
Yep.
Okay, but let me ask a question here. Devil's advocate question. There's some sort of moral aspect to the whole idea of prostitution or sex work, as we call it. Mm-hmm. Do you recognize that in your beliefs?
I'm going to quote Star Wars on you. Are you ready, Leon? You ready for this?
Go ahead. Go ahead.
Episode 3, Revenge of the Sith. Emperor Palpatine looks to Anakin Skywalker and he says, "Good is a point of view, and so are morals." Your morality might be different from Jason's morality, might be different from my morality. It is all a point of view. So I would rather have the option that if my career doesn't work out, I can go and sling my ding-a-ling around on OnlyFans and make money that way. I have that. It might not be for everybody, but it's there if I choose to. That's what a right is supposed to be.
Okay, so all right, fair enough, and I could accept that. But where does that philosophy and how does that philosophy intersect with the rule of law? Where do you draw the lines on that one?
Obviously, the non-aggression principle. So if there is something that is obviously bringing intention, and I mean like physical harm, okay, not you're triggered because you saw something on the internet. I'm talking actual physical harm to life, liberty, or property. That's where I draw the line. So anything that would affect any of those is where I would do it.
And it does seem like when you said, sort of we can all have different moralities, but I think there's some almost universal things like you own yourself. I mean, the idea of keep your hands off me and I'll keep your hands off you. And yeah, so I think there is some universal morality, but I think we tend to think there's a lot more things that are universal than are, at least a lot of us in the way we legislate.
You would, but at the same time, I don't discount or count out people. I think sometimes people just have to be reminded of the basic decency things. So I think we've been divided and been so have so much vitriol towards each other the last 25 years politically that we just need to remember at the end of the day, we're all human. We all have a heart. We all have a soul. We all love, breathe, sleep. We all do the same things at heart. And those are the things that we have to try to touch on instead of the differences. So I tend to try to be a little bit more optimistic and try to find the common ground and the better side of people.
Okay. Well, there's another thing going on in Maine as well, and it's kind of a win for liberty, I guess you'd say, but it's also a little bit of a dark side too. James, maybe we could get the visual up on this. So, apparently, Maine is where they have one of these fusion centers, I guess, and these are one of these intelligence gathering centers where, and they're in other places of the country too. So it's not just Maine, but what makes Maine a little bit different is that even though these places apparently are spying on us and collecting data on citizens that aren't doing anything wrong, I guess they don't want any of their government agents, any law enforcement talking about it. And so one of these, I guess a state law enforcement officer, he actually, I guess it sounds like he I guess he was speaking out against it.
He blew the whistle. I did hear about this a little bit. I haven't heard too much since. So this article on Reason, when was this published?
This article was published. It was actually in January, so it's a little bit dated. Yeah,
no, I haven't heard anything else about this since. So,
well, it does sound though like it sounds like there was a resolution in the case though, and $300,000 in damages. So to the officer who was essentially he was demoted, and I guess he was penalized in other ways on his job for letting the public know what was going on. Essentially, it sounds like, and so
he is a mini Edward Snowden is all he did, and I'm thankful that he had a better outcome than Edward Snowden did, because to me Edward Snowden didn't do anything wrong, but the people deserve to know. Government is so quick to thumb their nose and thinking the general population doesn't need to do that. They can't handle that. I don't want government to determine what I can and cannot handle. I have a severe, don't insult my intelligence, don't insult my existence. I know my capacity of what I can handle. Okay, guess what? Supposedly there's aliens now, I think. So that's a thing. Yes. I can handle that. Okay, just be forthcoming about it. We deserve to know this. We deserve to know what's going on. But government has this almost insidiously rude way of thumbing their nose. Like, people don't need to know about that. No, don't tell them the truth. I have a problem with that.
Well, and just for our audience too, real quickly, and just for our audience, Eric Snowden was brought up. So just in case you've been living in a cave the last couple of decades, Eric Snowden, real hero of liberty. He had a cushy job within the national intelligence, and he saw what was going on. He saw, I think it was a leader, I can't remember the guy's name, one of the heads of the NSA or something, go in front of Congress and say that, no, we are not spying on our citizens. And he literally was working, seeing that, yes, we are spying on the citizens. And he came out and he broke that with Glenn Greenwald and another reporter, I believe. And he's been in hiding ever since, while the person who who lied to Congress has just been getting all these cushy jobs for CNN and MSNBC.
Yeah. His name is the guy you're talking about is Clapper, Admiral Clapper.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah.
No. Sorry. But this problem that we are seeing in Maine is really a part of a very larger problem with the surveillance and the censorship by governmental authorities. I mean, when you look at some of the stuff that we hear now about the FBI, when you look at some of the stuff that we hear through the Twitter files, we are seeing that this surveillance and censorship is a part of a larger problem, where the government is trying to get us to think a certain way, to act a certain way, and to speak a certain way. This is a very serious problem, though it came into light in Maine, but this thing is going on. It's going on all over the country. And I hope at some point in time, we can make a serious push to change the way the government is collecting data on many of us and using it in a world full of
sheep. In a world full of sheep, this guy decided to be a black sheep, and the world's a better place because of it.
Yes. Indeed.
Well, it's some relatively good news out of Maine, but another thing that happened in Maine as well, I thought we'd just get your take on, and this doesn't have anything specifically to do, I don't think, with Maine in particular, but Joe Biden decided to go there recently to sign an executive order on essentially to encourage more creation of inventions, I guess is what the articles say, but it's really about spurring, I guess, more domestic job growth and production over here, I guess, domestically. And yeah, there you go, Bidenomics. Yeah, Bidenomics on stilts, I guess. But and James, maybe you could bring the visual up real quick. This is the article from Fox talking about it briefly. And Biden went, whoops. Okay, hold on a second. We got some visual or audio there. One of the funny things was that apparently he went there to sign it. He talked all about it, and then he just sort of walked away and didn't sign it. And then they had to bring him back to actually sign it. And we actually have a video of that. And the reason I wanted to share the video is it's not just the fact that he sort of isn't, may not be quite all there, but it's the fact of what he said after he signed it. And so, yeah, James, can we get the video real quick on this?
I'm coming back to shake your hand, but I forgot I didn't sign the order. All that talk and no action. All right.
So he'd just come back to the desk after.
I'm signing the executive order, federal research and development in support of domestic manufacturing in the United States, which means more jobs.
So, this is the thing, right? He thinks just by a stroke of a pen, he's creating more jobs, and he imagines those jobs to be productive.
Yeah.
It's just sort of, I just thought, hey, maybe this is something you guys wanted to talk about a little bit, just sort of this whole Bidenomics idea that, hey, from the stroke of a pen,
government
make the economy better.
Yeah, we know government can create jobs, right? We know that, don't we? Yeah. I think that was our first lesson of economics then that we got in college. Because I might have missed that lesson too.
Sorry, I think you got frozen there a second, Leon. Yeah.
Okay, I'm sorry. Alan, go ahead. I'm sorry.
So I will say it's, before I comment on the actual job creation, I put that in air quotes. I'm not going to pick on President Biden's cognitive decline. I know what it's like to have older folks in your life with a cognitive decline, and it's really hard. I can't imagine being president of the United States and then having, should you own it? Yes. But at the same time, everybody has pride. So I'm not going to pick on the president for that. But what I will say is that, God, I hate quoting Reagan, but I have to quote Reagan. So what are those 9 words that Reagan said? Hi, I'm from the government and I'm here to help. That's never been a thing. And then government's not going to make jobs appear. Okay. Reagan didn't make it happen. Biden's not going to make it happen. All I see is I look at it like a scale, like Reaganomics is over here and Bidenomics is over here, and they're both just equal. They were both just awful. So I have zero faith that this is going to actually pan out to be anything. And I just hope that the American people can be prepared to weather yet another storm.
Well, Alan, I'm going to push back a little bit on the first part of your comment that you just made. Yes, you're absolutely right. We all have older folks in our lives who are having cognitive challenges. I say I'm the second to last of 9 kids, and some of my older siblings are indeed showing some cognitive decline, some cognitive issues. But the fact of the matter is, none of them is president of the United States.
Oh, no, I'm not denying that aspect at all. I'm just saying I won't do what many people in right-wing media have done and go out of my way to make fun of the president for it. That's all I was stating.
Okay,
yeah,
fair enough. Okay.
Yeah, I just think the sad thing about this is that, and we're seeing this across the board now. I mean, we had an issue with Mitch McConnell the other day, and there's the issue with
it's everywhere.
Yeah, exactly. Yes. Yeah, because we have a sort of a gerontocracy, I guess, going on. But it's that people are electing these people knowing this. It's almost like, it doesn't matter. It's sort of like vote blue no matter who, or vote red no matter who, I guess, in some of these cases. I
just imagine the council, the House and Senate chambers must smell like icy hot Tiger Balm, Geritol, and Vaseline. That's all I can imagine they smell like. Because it's like, hey, how many older folks can we put in power? Let's figure it out. But there's at some point there are many places, and I wish people would understand. In business right now, we're getting ready to have the biggest flow of retirees ever, with the boomers getting ready to retire across the board. Okay. There are going to be a lot of jobs and positions opening up through something called secession. Many places have secession planners getting younger people ready to take on the steps of these roles that older people have been filling for a very long time. Why can't we have a Democrat, Republican, and I'll even say a Libertarian Party planning a secession planning to help try to bring in a younger generation to help bring in the ideas of tomorrow today? And I just think that if government took that one out of private industry's playbook, they might find themselves in a slightly higher approval rating.
Well, the sad thing is too, if we would just kind of learn the lesson from libertarians that if the government is small and it has a very narrow scope, it almost doesn't matter what some of these people do too. So I mean, it's just like it wouldn't be as impactful, I guess. But certainly much better to have people for those things that do have to do in government to be a little bit sharper on on what's going on, I guess. Yeah. So, well, I guess we're almost at the end of the show. One of the things we usually like to do is end on something kind of funny, even though we've been laughing a little bit our way through most of this. This is a little bit of a culture war issue, but it just has to do with sort of how, I guess, much some of this stuff is being shoehorned in. And so we recently had Disney is remaking its movie Snow White and the Seven Dwarfs. But the odd part about the movie is that there's almost no dwarves, and Snow White is not quite as Snow White as she was before. Which,
everybody. So that's. I'm going to take a slightly less traditional take on this. I think that in a world of capitalism, Disney is a part of this capitalist nation that we have, and everybody's entitled to create something that might be for a certain group of people. And honestly, it's whatever. I've never seen the original Snow White, so I'm not going to go out of my way to watch the remake of Snow White. But everybody can make something to market to certain types of people. Movies are no different than whether it be swimsuits or towels or anything. Like Bed Bath & Beyond is going to target my wife a hell of a lot faster than they're going to target me with some of their ads. Okay. We know that companies and corporations do things selectively with certain media groups in mind. And that's just normal everyday practice. It's 6 in one and half dozen the other to me.
Yeah.
Well, the whole thing is that you go woke, you go broke, and this is the joke. Look at what has happened to Budweiser. So I guess the marketplace will take care of these people, all of these things. If this Snow White and these new non-dwarfs will have any value, it will be determined in the marketplace. I hope it has. I hope it have none, because to me that stuff is trash now. But but let the marketplace determine these things, and we'll be just fine.
The marketplace should determine it.
Yes. Well, and certainly with that, that's the opinion of just about any right liberty-minded person, is that I guess that the market should be determining this, because I mean, after all, this is how we got Jackie Robinson into baseball and broke the color barrier. It's because they somebody tried something a little bit different, and they were free to try something different, and that's how we were able to do those things. But I think what makes some of this a little more insidious is that we see some of this stuff is being sort of shoehorned in potentially through government policies, like some of these ESG scores and other things like that, where you talked about that form. What was that term called again that you introduced earlier in the show?
Form-based code.
Form-based code, yeah, and I mean, I assume this is kind of stuff that we see coming from sort of the UN and the Klaus Schwab types and stuff, and so they're trying to sort of dream up ways to, sort of get government to be able to sort of redirect those pension funds and other things towards things that favor their political ideologies, I guess, when in reality the government, if they are doing a pension, should just simply keep it neutral. We're the fiduciary for these employees, and let's just simply invest the money in the way that gets the best return, instead of trying to. And we saw that recently with the Dylan Mulvaney thing as well. Where
but people also choose to work for those corporations too.
True. So, that's right.
Sure.
I'm myself. I don't drink water. I drink whiskey like a man, so I don't drink Bud Light. But I mean, to each their own, So there's a market for something for somebody somewhere. That's just capitalism.
Yeah.
Yeah. Go ahead, Jason. Go ahead.
Well, I was just going to say that there was a quote I did want to share from the actress who's playing Snow White, and she said, "People are making these jokes about their movie Snow White being a PC Snow White, where it's like, yeah, it is, but it's because we needed that." So.
Yeah.
So this isn't by accident. That's happening. But anyway, so
like I said, go woke, you go broke, and this is a joke. The marketplace will deal with this.
Yep. Look, I'm not going to lie that the woke movement is extremely controversial to a lot of people around the nation, but people, they tend to flock towards things or companies or corporations that align with their beliefs. So yes. It's not about quality. It's not about storytelling. It's none of it. So that's just the normal in 2023. I know a lot of the older generation tends to get more upset about it, but me as a millennial, I'm just, okay. I'm not going to go see the Barbie movie. Like I'm not going to go see The Sound of Freedom because I just, it's not they're not marketed for me. It's not for me. So I'm, when I find something, maybe Thor might come back and whoop some butt or something. I'm not sure, but when there's a movie that comes out that I want to see, I'll go see it. Gran Turismo, super excited for Gran Turismo coming out in August.
There you go.
Yeah.
Well, certainly we'd all be a little better off if we could all separate ourselves from this culture war stuff that's going on and just everybody to their own. So, yes. But I guess we're about at the end of our show. Did you have any last thoughts you wanted to share with the audience, Alan?
Yeah, absolutely. So I'll touch back on something that we talked about earlier when we were on public access is if you're interested in running, do it. Don't hold back. Tell people. Get involved with your if you're running for a political for a partisan spot, get with your local party. I don't care if you're a D and R and I and L, whatever you are. Get with your local party. Talk to people about what's important to them. Talk to your neighbors, and I'd say specifically talk with your neighbors because good chance that maybe your neighbors are struggling or they're going through something, and that might give you a little bit of inspiration. So when I ran, it was the COVID times and people were struggling. And I just, I took it upon myself to be a shield. I didn't want to be a bat. I wanted to be a shield. And that was my intended purpose. So if I choose to run again, maybe I might shift tactics. I'm not sure, but I'll make that decision when I come to it. But, you serve at the leisure of other people and at the pleasure of other people. You represent people that they don't believe anything that you believe, and you still have to give them value, and you still have to have them be heard and treat them with respect.
Awesome. Well, that certainly sounds like some great words to leave on. And by the way, if you decide to run for another office or go farther up, certainly let us know. We'd love to have you back on. This is a great conversation.
Love to come back anytime.
Sure. And for our audience, thank you for joining us for another conversation on how people just like you are advancing the cause of liberty in their regions and across the country. And you can check out our content on Facebook and Spotify, Rumble, and YouTube, and you'll find many more conversations and leave comments. And until next time, consider what you can do in your community to advance the cause of liberty and help us all to remain a little more free. Thanks again for joining us.
Life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness, always and forever.
Thank you for listening to the Knuckleheads of Liberty podcast. Find us on Facebook, Rumble, YouTube, your favorite podcast network, and at knuckleheadsofliberty.com.